Hello, Earthlings. How are you? I hope this finds you well. If not, I hope you get better. And you get better soon. Have another video here for you. And nobody has pointed this out yet. But I noticed this. You have to connect the dots. And these are disparate dots you have to connect. But they need to be connected because they are connected. You have to connect them in your mind, though. And first, you have to find those dots, and I found those dots. Who is his Russian handler in the White House? Or does he have several? Are either of these his Russian handler? Maybe the one on the left. Maybe the one on the left. I mean, after all, Hogwarts preacher is headquartered in where? You have it, Moscow, Idaho. Isn't that convenient? So is Hogwarts handling him? Is he a Russian handler? Is Hogwarts a Russian? In spirit, in the least. But Russian agent. I mean, I don't know. But he is absolutely being handled. There is a bug in his ear. So either it's someone close to him that's in his administration that is the Russian handler, or he's just got that, like I said, that hotline to that direct line to the Kremlin. And they're feeding him this nonsense. But look at the coordination here. You really have to pay attention, folks. He's getting this from somewhere. It's not just, a lot of people think it's just coming out of his demented brain. Not all the time. He's being fed this information at the last moment. I do believe he has dementia, so he doesn't remember anything from 2 weeks ago, let alone 3 weeks ago or 3 days ago, maybe even. But he can still remember immediately. So he's got somebody in his ear at all times, and he is saying exactly what the Russians want him to say. So let's listen here. Let's listen here. This is the reason for the title.
Bothered by the fact that Zelensky was saying, well, I have to get constitutional approval. I mean, he's got approval to go into war and kill everybody, but he needs approval to do a land swap, because there'll be some land swapping going on. I know that through Russia and through conversations with everybody, for the good of Ukraine.
Now, remember, he said there will be some land swapping going on, all right? His understanding right now is that land will be swapped. We know that there will be no land swapped. So is his Russian handler and or the Kremlin telling him, oh yeah, there'll be land swapped, and then saying something else out of the other side of the mouth? Perhaps. They're leading him to believe that land will be swapped. I don't even think Ukraine would agree to that. They're not going to swap any land. I would think that the only thing that Ukraine would agree to right now is a ceasefire, meaning nobody is firing on one another where we stand. Everybody holds their ground. We cease to fire, meaning we're not firing at each other for the time being while we're having these talks. That's all a ceasefire should be. There should be no prerequisite to that. It's just we both agree to stop killing each other right now, stop firing on one another right now for the time being. There doesn't have to be any further conditions for that. Peace deal, a potential peace deal, yes. But Ukraine is not going to agree to, and has already stipulated what would be required of a peace deal. And that would be for Russia to extract itself from Ukraine entirely and to respect the pre-invasion borders. And that includes handing back Crimea. You see this, folks? This is a no-go. It's not going to happen. And I'm not blaming Ukraine for that. That should be. That should be it for them. I mean, What that means is Ukraine won't take it further into Russia. They will stop any attacks or incursions into Russia. That they will cease all hostilities towards Russia beyond their borders. That's a fair deal. Now, some people say, oh, I want to go further than that, and Russia needs to pay reparations. That's not going to happen. And you're never going to get a peace deal if that happens. You'd have to push all the way to Moscow and defeat Russia entirely to get reparations in that regard. And that's not going to happen. That simply is not going to happen. So I'm saying this because this clown right here, this Mers, this coward, this clown, is hanging his hat on Donald Trump. He believes that, we're not going to go through it, but he believes that Donald Trump is going to have success in this meeting. They've spoken with Donald Trump and he understands. Really? Really, Mers? You think that Donald Trump understands? Because no, he doesn't. He doesn't understand. He said he expects there's going to be a land swap. So clearly, right off the bat, he does not understand. What did I say in the video yesterday? Russia loves to see this. They love to see the European Union and Ukraine groveling at the cankles of Donald Trump, their asset, for all intents and purposes. Whether he truly be an asset or not, effectively he's their asset. And he's acting like it once again. What he said about playing hard with Putin, getting tough on him 2 weeks ago was a head fake. And yet, what is European Union doing? They're groveling. They're groveling. They're hanging their hat on Donald Trump. Why? Because they don't want this to be their problem. They want America to bail them out. You can't have it both ways, folks. You can't criticize America and want them to bail you out. Chart your own course. Do it on your own. Your economy is 10 times Russia's economy. You have the resources to do it. What you're lacking, obviously, is the willpower and the cooperation amongst each other to make it happen. I say this as an American, and it doesn't please me to say it. Chart your own freaking course now. This is ridiculous. Do not legitimate what Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are doing, which is effectively Yalta Conference 2.0, where they think they can unilaterally decide the fate of Ukraine. He doesn't understand that. He doesn't even care that you say that. He's not listening, and you know he's not listening. So, land swap. No dice. This fool. Anyway, listen. This asset, for all intents and purposes, even if he's not an official asset of Russia, he is, for all intents and purposes. He is, effectively.
Good stuff, not bad stuff. Also, some bad stuff for both. So there's good and there's bad. But it's very complex.
It's good, it's bad, but it's very complex. Well, you can't have it both, all right? If it's complex, then it's not good and bad.
Have lines that are very uneven, and there'll be some swapping, there'll be some changes in land, and the word that they will use is, they make changes.
The word that they would use, is they would make changes. Who? Who's the they there, right? Let's play it again. Who is the they? Changes.
Changes in land, and the word that...
Let's go back.
And there'll be some swapping, there'll be some changes.
There'll be some changes? Changes? Changes. Okay. That's news to Zelensky.
In land, and the word that they will use is, they make changes.
The word that they would use is they make changes. Who? The they. Who's they? Who's they?
Change the lines, the battle lines.
Change the battle lines.
Occupied a big portion of Ukraine. They've occupied some very prime territory. We're going to try and get some of that territory.
I don't think it's a big portion of Ukraine. They've occupied a sizable portion, not big, It's not all of Ukraine by any means. It's not even half of Ukraine. I don't even know if it's a third of Ukraine. But they are occupying parts of Ukraine, that's for sure. But even those parts that they're occupying are contested. And they're battlegrounds.
Back for Ukraine.
I mean, it's just...
So, changes, right? Changes.
Waiting for, and my time was running wild, a million dead-end streets, and every time I thought I'd got it made, it seemed the taste was not so sweet. So I turned myself to face me, but I've never caught a glimpse of how the others must see the faker. I'm much too fast to take that test. Changes. Turn and face the strain. Changes. Don't wanna be a richer man. Changes. Turn and face the strain. Changes. It's gonna have to be a different man. Time may change me.
So yeah, is that appropriate or what? But it gets more appropriate. I like this guy. He provides a summary of what the Russian newspapers are saying. And it's interesting what the Russian newspapers are saying. It's not like Russian TV. It's a little more intelligent than Russian TV. But it truly is the mouthpiece, in my opinion, of the Kremlin or the people surrounding Vladimir Putin. So let's listen about changes.
So, this reading Russia is a little different. Right now, I'm flying to Alaska for the Putin-Trump summit. I'm on the final leg of the journey from Moscow, Frankfurt to Anchorage. Before taking off, I had a quick look at the online versions of this morning's Russian papers. What can we tell from them? Well, 2 days before the summit, there is no hint of compromise from Moscow on Ukraine, including on the key territorial issue. Moskovsky Komsomolets. Land liberated by Russia and fixed in our constitution as part of Russia is not up for discussion. It's not on the negotiating table.
So there we go. So the Kremlin is saying through their mouthpiece newspapers and magazines, right, that they're all Kremlin mouthpieces, that it's not up for discussion. Land already seized and taken is not up for discussion. Therefore, there can be no swap, as Donny Dipstick indicates. So if he has a handler, which I believe he does, they're misinforming him purposely.
In terms of physical territory, maybe only the question of whether it would be internationally recognized as such, and Putin's statement last year about a ceasefire being conditional to Ukrainian armed forces withdrawing from there. As for what Trump said about the possible swapping of territories, the only compromises possible from the Russian side could concern the buffer zones in Kharkiv and Sumy regions, and with major caveats, for example, that these territories remain demilitarized. What the writer refers to as liberated land is Ukrainian territory that has been seized and occupied by Russia and which Moscow claims to have annexed. On the eve of the talks, the situation is clear. A diplomatic solution to the Ukraine crisis is of course preferable, and alas, this cannot happen without compromises. But Russia is also ready to achieve its goals militarily and is demonstrating that clearly. Then there's this article. Alaska is an example of the movability of state borders. They will inevitably talk about moving the borders between Russia and Ukraine. At the meeting between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, there will inevitably be discussion of moving the borders between Russia and Ukraine. Alaska is an obvious example of the movability of state borders and the change of ownership of large territories.
The change of ownership of large territories changes.
This happened a lot in the 19th century. In 1897, the Russian Empire sold Alaska to America for just $7.2 million, 1.5 million square kilometers of land was handed over. Borders were movable in the east and in the west. It was like that in the 19th century and in the 20th century, and it will be like that in the 21st century. So the message from Moscow is pretty stark, that it's okay to move borders, to change borders.
To change borders. It's okay to change borders. And so I want to say to you Russians out there, and to you Chinese, and to Xi, do you hear that, Xi? It's okay to change borders. So if you have your eye on Siberia, it's okay to change borders. Just take some of your folks and paratroop them in there with boots on and let them land on the Siberian soil and adopt the same logic that Vladimir Putin and Russia have adopted. Wherever their doctrine is, wherever there are Russian boots, that land is Russia's. And land some of your young men and women in boots on Siberia and say, wherever Chinese boots are, that land is China's. And you have a lot of people to send across the border to throw into a meat grinder against Russia. So do you hear that, Russia and Vlad? I hope China takes you up on that. I hope China takes you up on that. Because it's okay to move borders and to change borders. And so think about what they're saying here. And think about Trump's attitude towards Greenland and Trump's attitude towards Canada, where he thinks he can just change the borders, where he can just acquire any land that he wants and diktat. Where's he getting these notions from and these ideas from? Who is putting these bugs in his ear? Who is this guy's handler? Or does he have a direct line to the Kremlin? And he's on the phone with the Kremlin every day or every other day.
To sell land, to grab land, to seize territory. That's where we're at in 2025. Izvestia reports the main agenda of the summit includes settling the Ukraine crisis, but the two sides may also discuss cooperation in other areas such as economic cooperation in the Arctic. Experts predict Moscow will be keen to boost bilateral relations with Washington even if there's little or no progress on Ukraine. And if there is little or no progress on Ukraine, clearly Moscow will try to blame Kyiv and Europe. It's already pointing a finger. Izvestia writes, Brussels could be an obstacle to dialogue between Moscow and Washington. The European Commission insists that Ukraine and Europe should be at the negotiating table with Russia and the US, but the EU categorically opposes Kyiv making the territorial concessions which are inevitable for compromise with Russia, whose forces are advancing quickly in the Donbass.
And that's just bullshit too. They will give Ukraine no agency. They won't. They just continually, like Donald Trump. This is why I said he's either got a Russian handler in his administration or several, or he's got a direct line to the Kremlin. Because he's parroting the same thing. It is a complete disrespect of Zelensky, of the Ukrainians. They have no agency. They're not capable of this. It's the EU calling the shots, or it's NATO calling the shots. And that is bull. It is, once again, just an absolute slap in the face and an insult to Zelensky and the Ukrainians. They don't want to recognize Zelensky's achievements, obviously, and they don't want to recognize how tough Ukraine is in their resistance, and they're fighting for their sovereignty. Like I said, I still have my doubts that the meeting is going to transpire. But we'll see. We'll see. We've got 2 days, right? 2 days. We will see how it goes. And it's interesting here how they're already prefacing that there's not going to be any progress on Ukraine. Then that they're going to discuss other things in Anchorage, Alaska. I mean, is the United States military not concerned about what else Donald Trump might be talking about as far as partnering up with Vladimir Putin in the Arctic? Is the United States military not concerned that this is being held in Anchorage, Alaska? This was not Donald Trump's idea. This was the Kremlin's idea. There's no way this was Donald Trump's idea. He would never think of Alaska. Until he doesn't even know that Alaska exists. He thinks it's Russia. I wonder if he still thinks he's going to Russia. Anchorage, Russia. Right? Oh, the madness. I can't understand. I mean, it's got to be horrible being Zelensky right now. I would be screaming. I'm screaming now. Inside. But, I mean, it would infuriate me day in and day out to have to rely on this bastard for anything, and you pretty much can't rely on him for anything anymore anyway. It's crumbs now. He wants to try to do it indirectly through, the European countries and NATO buying the goods to give to Ukraine. How is it all going to turn out? I don't know. I mean, I think Ukraine can eventually prevail here in maintaining its sovereignty and getting Russia to retract its military from Ukraine proper and Crimea if Europe stood behind Ukraine. And it behooves Europe to do that because they keep making the claim that they're next. If Ukraine falls, well, pony up then and get it done. Ukraine's the front line. You can't let it fall. Right? Right? We'll see, right? All right, that's it for now. Take care, everybody. Bye.